up.
Hello and welcome to today's interview. That's right, I don't have much of a show, the normal show that I've been doing for you. It's Friday and we had the hangout last night. Thanks to everybody who came. Almost 80 people there at one point with special guests calling in, making cameos. We heard from Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn. We heard from comedian and commentator Christian Finnegan, as well as comedian and commentator J.L. Covan. All stopped in on a moment's notice. I asked people who they wanted to hear from, and all three of those guys were kind enough to jump in the Zoom without any planning. It was great. Really great. Loved that. Loved hanging out with you last night. Had a great time. If you've not joined our hangouts, we always have new people, a lot of new people jumping in there in the conversation last night. I'll be doing them Monday and Thursday nights at 8 p.m. So if you're a paid subscriber, you'll get a link, and I'm telling people they can invite friends if they would like, because it's such a wonderful space to be in. So join our hangouts and feel better about everything, because the connection of community is an elixir. It's important, and you can find it right here at Stand Up. All right. Well, I say it's not a show because I just got the interview today, and it's a really special person in my life. So I wanted to share her with you, with everybody. It's time you heard from my therapist. That's right. My therapist is on today's show. I've heard Dan Harris and many other people do this, because why keep all the secrets and all the advice and all the guidance that Deborah Adamy has given to me for just me? Well, because it's secret. It's specific to me, and I'm not sure that necessarily applies to you. But with the conversation that we have that you're about to hear, I think can apply to everybody. And that's the idea. What can we learn from you, Deborah Adamy? Deborah is really a special person, one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. She is 67 years old, and she has been in practice for, I think, 38 years. She is an advocate, a healer, a therapist, wears a lot of hats. She's a mother, a wife, a social worker, an educator, and officially she calls herself a holistic psycho-spiritual therapist who encourages her clients to live from love rather than fear, to be guided by their intuitive inner wisdom and integrate trust, compassion, and empowerment into your daily lives. And that's exactly what she did for me, and it changed my life, enriched my life, and gave me advice and exercises that I'll use for the rest of my life. So I wanted to share Deborah with you, and I learned a lot about her because we've never quite had a talk like this. So I came away even more impressed than I already was. So first we get to know Deborah a little bit, her background, how she started, and then we talk about her practice, her thoughts, and the way forward, which I'll be doing a lot of. Deborah also hosts her own podcast, and you can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's called Enlighten with Dr. Debora Adamy. I hope you'll go subscribe if you like our conversation, because there's a lot more of her advice there. So, like I said, I don't have all of the normal parts of the opening segment, which is evolving. I'm really excited. It's been obviously a really long week for all of us, but I do have a conversation with one of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Debora Adamy. All right, we are here with Deborah Adamy. Hi. Thank you for coming to my place, to sit across from me, to do this. This is weird. You were my therapist, then I did your podcast, and now this. How do you feel about it?
I love it, Pete. I love that I'm looking at you with headphones on and that we're sitting across from each other. It's a delight to see you and to be here with you.
It's a delight to see you and be here with you. And I was so happy that I ran into you literally the other day. That's why you're here, right? Like, what do you call those meetings? Or do they mean anything?
Synchronicities.
Go ahead.
Synchronicities, like it's not a coincidence.
You don't believe it was a coincidence that I ran into you?
No. I mean, it took me a minute to figure out who you were, because you just popped your head out of the window.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I pulled up on her. She was just walking, minding her own business, like a person. And I drove up, and I believe I yelled, "Hey, lady!"
No, you roll down your. Well,
yeah.
You don't roll down windows anymore. I guess you, whatever it was, and you just stared out the window at me. And I'm like,
and I had a knit hat on and glasses.
And I hadn't seen you in a long time.
Right.
And it was out of context. And I'm like, who is this man staring at me? And he's not saying anything. Am I supposed to say, are you lost? Do you need help?
Did you think it was a little bit arrogant of me that I started yelling my career credits? You may have seen me on.
Don't you know me? You know me.
I didn't know. It was one of those moments where I was expecting you to recognize me right away. I recognized that you didn't. And now I recognize the situation. I'm in a car yelling your name. You know, I know you, but you have no idea. So now you're feeling, slightly uncomfortable, awkward, or whatever the word is. And then I didn't know what to do. So I just yelled my full name.
You just said, does Pete Dominic mean anything to you?
And what was so upsetting is you said no, and you ran and blew a whistle. I was like,
I got my maze out.
You sprayed. I thought it was weird that I came over to hug you and you sprayed me. There's no convincing you of who I was or if you recognized me.
Not at all. All I needed to hear was Pete Dominic, and I was like, oh my God, get out of the car and give me a hug.
Yes. So
it was wonderful to see you.
That's what happened, and that's how she landed here. And I want to talk with you about your work and your career because you helped me so much in your practice over the years. I went for probably, I don't know how long I went, a couple of years I went pretty regularly and came on and off at different times, but I came pretty consistently almost every week. I loved it. I always look forward to it.
You were very disciplined. You cared about being conscious and aware and figuring out how to look at yourself and be the best version of yourself you could be.
What is it, generally speaking? Does that apply to anybody who makes the leap to go to therapy?
No. I have. Some
people are forced, I guess, or something.
Some people are forced, or they're in a crisis, or. But I definitely have clients or have had clients who show up but don't do the work. Show up but don't want to take responsibility. Show up but want to blame others or feel they're stuck in like a.
But I did all those things.
A victim mentality, like it's somebody else's problem, somebody else's fault. So, it's actually, I don't know how to describe this. It's actually a joy as a therapist to be working with somebody who wants to be there. I've said this to you. I've said it to many people. Therapy works best if you're here because you want to be here. If you're here because somebody else is forcing you or pressuring you or guilting you into being there. And whether it's a teenager, whether it's in a tumultuous marriage, whether it's, out of desperation because the courts have mandated you to go through, whatever it is, it's like if you're being forced and pushed, it's my job to try and make you want to be there, right. to make it safe enough to be in a.
But you know the difference between someone who's being forced there versus someone who's choosing to be there. I loved going there. I always just saw it, and I used to try to, when I talk about it with people, even now, to destigmatize it to people, especially men and anyone who's never done it. It's just like going to the gym, but for the rest of your inside, your body, mentally, emotionally. It's like going to the gym. You go to the gym for different reasons. Go to the therapy for different reasons. You go talk. Listen.
And what you're saying with the gym, and that's a discipline to work out and to keep your body strong and healthy and flexible that's a discipline. And I think self-awareness is a discipline.
I think most people, there's very little controversy about the benefits of physical exercise and healthy diet, but there is a lot of controversy about going to therapy. How do you frame the controversy? People who criticize just the concept of it, regardless of what kind of therapist you are, what kind of therapy it is, just boilerplate criticism. You've heard all of them, probably to your face.
Actually, I was one of the skeptics myself. I never thought I'd be a therapist.
Oh,
I actually thought, I'll tell you honestly, when I was in high school, I had a friend whose father was a psychiatrist, and I knew that father was very tuned out to his own family.
How? He's a psychiatrist. How is that? That blows my mind when I hear things like that.
Oh, he was pretty self-absorbed, and I don't know what. And I was very cynical, and I just was like, how is he supposed to help other people when he's not even tuned into his own family?
Right.
And I was very critical and skeptical of therapists, and I think there are a lot of therapists who are there for the right reasons, just like any field. There's some teachers that are not there for the right reasons. There's some politicians who aren't there for the right reasons.
Doctors, lawyers, every job there.
Musicians, you can take any
What would be
field.
the wrong reason to be a therapist? It seems like really, hard. What would be the wrong reason, I guess, to be serving in that capacity?
It's an ego boost. I don't know. They haven't done their own work. It's a way to avoid looking at themselves, and they focus on other people. I don't know.
So what changed your skepticism?
I was...
What was your track? Where were you headed?
Well, I actually, also, I have to say that I knew people who went to therapy, and I felt like it was kind of this, spiral and just kind of like I also grew up in, I was in high school in the early 70s, and there was a lot of Woody Allen movies out, and there was just like this stereotype of a Woody Allen psychoanalysis and staring at your own belly button, and just like it seemed very indulgent to me.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
And
I think a lot of people think that way still, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. And maybe, I know that's not all of psychoanalysis, but I was so not into psychoanalysis. I was so judgmental of like, that just feels like it's for the elite. It feels very, I don't know.
I mean, it's mostly accessible to the elite, I guess.
Yeah.
That's why people feel that way.
Exactly. Exactly.
People who don't have resources or insurance.
And, and the idea of psychoanalysis where you lie on the couch and the therapist is the psychoanalyst is not very much of a human being, and they just sit there and take notes. And so I had a lot of that negative, associations and connotations. And what changed for me was when I was in high school and then in college, there was a ex-priest friend of our family's, Dermy McDermott. And Dermy lived his
name was Dermy McDermott?
He was Dermot McDermott, but they called him Dermy.
Sorry. Nothing else matters. This is all we're doing for the next 45 minutes. Misty Misterson lived near him, and Peter Jenkins.
Peter Peterson.
I'm sorry.
Dermy was phenomenal.
Tell me about Dermy, the ex-priest.
He was an ex-Catholic priest. He lived in the Lower East Side, and the
best kind of priest. My opinion.
Loved the people, and he loved community organizing, and he was a psychologist after he became a priest, and he was doing some really great skills with what we don't even use these terms anymore, but ex-convicts, drug addicts, people who had really, really been struggling financially, socially. And Dermy was teaching them skills. And one of the guys in the group said to him, "You're too old, you're too white, and you're too educated to have any idea of what my life is like." And Dermy was humble enough to say, "You're absolutely right. But I've got these really great skills that I want to teach you. Is there any way that if I could teach you to teach each other, you could be of support to each other because you know each other's lives?" Idea. And he created peer counseling, a model for peer counseling. And it was called The Art of Friends Helping Friends. And he taught communication skills, assertiveness training, validating emotions and feelings, constructive confrontation skills. And I, at 19 years old, got trained by him.
Oh.
And I was like, screw traditional therapy. I love this empowerment model. I love this idea. He talked about therapy being much more of a horizontal relationship as opposed to a vertical relationship where the therapist was up here and the
hierarchy.
The hierarchy.
In your practice, you sit above the client, a throne. So it's ironic that you feel this way. You would throw coins at me at times.
The peons.
You would, when the session was over, yes, you would wave me out. Oh, I love this. I love this idea, and that's how you arrived at it. And so I'm sure you still think that way.
I do. Yeah. It's my foundation. It's really about empowerment of people and giving them skills so that they can live into the fullness of their potential, as opposed to I'm the almighty or I've got the answers and you're down below. So even when I went to undergraduate, I majored in psychology and education, thought I was going to be a teacher. And I got my first job, I was like, I don't think I want to be a classroom teacher.
Right.
And I was like, I think I want to teach about life.
There you go.
And so then I worked for 7 years in a lot of different fields, and I ended up going for my master's in social work at Hunter College School of Social Work. And again, I didn't want to do clinical therapy because I'd been trained by Dermy to just empower the people. So I kept thinking, I'll do community organizing. I wanted to do social justice. But I got jobs in clinical settings, but I was working with inner city youth. And
clinical always generally means, in your case, the one-on-one therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even group therapy.
Yeah, clinical.
Or couples group.
Yes, exactly.
One-on-one. Okay, good.
Exactly.
So you got.
So I was working in inner city Brooklyn, working with kids, teenagers, and oh my God, these kids still to this day, and this was in the mid '80s. So we're talking 40 years ago. These kids taught me so much.
Sure.
And
were they mostly black? Were they other ethnic?
All black and Latino. Mm-hmm. And
You're a young white woman
from the suburbs, living in Brooklyn as a young social worker.
Did you have to build trust every day, or what, did you get trust at some point?
It was immediate. I think, again, Dermy, I know you want to make fun of his name, but Dermy gave me such a foundation, because when he hired me to do some of the work with him in the Lower East Side, and I'm like, Dermy, I'm this white suburban, like middle class. What are you doing? He goes, you're centered, mm-hmm. and you're grounded, and you have compassion, and you know how to listen. I trust you, and they'll trust you. So he threw me in very early on, and he was right. It was about honoring another human being. So I feel like my whole foundation was always about seeing another human being as like it's namaste. The light in me honors the light in you. You know, it's like I love these kids. I worked with him for years. I worked with the kids in Brooklyn for years. And I never thought I'd be in a private practice, because that always had this connotation of eliteness. It always had this connotation of, I don't know, just I cared about the marginalized. I cared about the vulnerable. I cared about people who were oppressed. All of that has just been such a foundation for me. And I was working at this organization in Brooklyn, and they were asking me to run parenting workshops. And even when I was running the groups for the teenagers, I would have countless people coming up to me afterwards saying, we'd like to come to you for therapy. I'm like, oh, I don't do that. I don't do that. Huh. And I'm like, no, we feel really comfortable with you. You just ran a workshop on discipline versus punishment, and you're speaking our language and you're respecting us. We'd like to come to you for therapy. No, I don't do that. I ran groups for teenagers, groups for parents, until probably about the 40th request. I thought, well, maybe I should do it, and do it my way, and do it with my values, with my integrity. And so that's how I started private practice, after fighting it for a really long time.
How many years ago was that? How long have you been doing private practice?
The first client I had was 38 years ago.
How much has your philosophy and style changed in private practice and one-on-one sessions or counseling of any type? Have you had a lot of different transformations, theories, things that work, things that don't, or is it consistently just been added to it and learned more? I mean, was there, I don't even know how to ask the question.
Well, it's a great question. It's a great question. I hope I've grown. I hope I've expanded my skills. I hope I've stretched my mind and haven't been static, but I do think the foundation is solid. The foundation is treating another human being the way I would want to be treated, the old golden rule, being able to come from a place of compassion and not judgment, being curious, open-minded. I've gotten a lot of training. I've done a lot of training on, whether it's cognitive behavior therapy, whether it's trauma release work. I also got my massage therapy license because I saw people holding so much trauma in their bodies, and I wanted to understand how to work with the body.
Do you still do that? The body work?
Yeah, I do it integratively. I don't do it like in a, I don't.
I knew you had a table in there, and I knew you had certifications and different, but obviously I never did that, but I don't even understand.
Well, I don't have to do it from the table anymore. I put the table away, the massage table away. Yeah, because I think I can do a lot. There's a lot.
Do you still have that guillotine in your office? I always thought that was a little inappropriate for a therapist.
When people get really messed up in their head, sometimes you just have to chop it off.
Nothing we can do. Here's a new head. I mean, that is what you're trying to do, is you're trying to give people a new mindset, though, right?
It is.
Isn't that a lot of what you're trying to do when people come in and tell me how to think about my problems, my life, my issues, tell me how to exist in a more...
And I don't know if you and I talked about this or with the same language, but I often feel that we all have an internal voice of judgment.
Oh, I don't.
Not Pete's the only one that doesn't have an internal voice of judgment. Some people's voices of judgment is very, very loud. Some is very soft. We all have one, whether ours is in a microphone with an amplifier and a surround sound, or whether it's just a whisper of like, why'd you do that? Why didn't you do it that way?
Shame.
What's wrong with you? Yeah. And so there's like this little niggling or this very loud voice. And I'm often inviting clients to turn down the volume of the inner voice of judgment and turn up the volume of the inner voice of compassion. I don't do really well in terms of functioning or even thriving when I'm riddled with judgment. I do much better when I'm embraced with compassion.
Right.
And when I'm seen, heard, understood, it's like, oh my God, I can look at myself so much better.
It's true of everyone.
I think
when
so.
you're seen and heard, you do better.
Don't you think?
I think so. You're the one.
Yeah,
I feel like that would be most people. I feel like we struggle if we're not seen and heard. I feel like increasingly loneliness of any kind.
And anger and rage and hostility and violence and needing to blame and shame. If we're not blaming and shaming ourselves, we're doing it to somebody else. Yeah. So I do believe that's not so much a technique or a modality that I learned. It just feels like a foundation that I keep going back to. We want to be seen, heard, validated, understood, and loved. And when we can do it I feel like as a therapist, I've got the honor of doing that for a client until they do it for themselves.
Where do the rewards come in your work? Or maybe I make an assumption that there needs to be. What are the rewards? I'm so purpose-driven, and I get such feedback, great feedback, my whole career. I mean, the joke about comedians before I started doing this is you get applause on the way to work. Like on the way to the stage, they're already applauding before you've even done the job. Like imagine if you walked into your job and people were applauding you and like, I didn't even do anything yet. So there's constant feedback in that way. There's constant feedback in this work, and I love it. It makes me feel good. But if you're a therapist, is it the same thing? Do people tell you how much of a difference you made in their lives?
Some do. Some do.
All right. Can I now?
Yes.
So
you can make me cry?
Yeah, hopefully. So you've made a huge difference in my life because you not only gave me all kinds of different ways to think about myself, talk to myself, practices, including meditation, but it took place over such a long period of time, and at the right time. My kids are young, and my career is on fire, and there was this one specific breakthrough that I've talked about a lot, and there were many, but there's one that I love so much, and it's just really interesting because you're in my place now, and you looked and you mentioned there's two separate John Lewis poster and a little picture in my apartment, and you said, "Oh, I love your John Lewis pictures," and I said, "Oh yeah," and and then I realized you're the person. You're literally the person who made a very important point about what John Lewis meant to me personally for my career, because I would go into your office and I would talk about my life, my career, and inadequacy. And specifically, I had such a privileged childhood. It sounds so crazy to talk about, but for me, it was a huge deal. Like, I was small and I didn't make the starting lineup. I made the team, but I never made the starting lineup. I rode the bench. I worked harder than everybody. I was there early. I stayed late, but I was too small and too weak to really get in the game. Everybody liked me. I had lots of friends, but I was a bench sitter the whole time, soccer and lacrosse. And it crushed me. I just wanted to be in the game. And I came back from the Aspen Ideas Festival, and I was telling you how I interviewed John Lewis, who is one of my heroes. And that after the interview, I was taking a walk with Val, and I told her, I just started crying. I was like, I feel like I've arrived. Like, I don't feel like an imposter having interviewed him. I think I did a good interview, and I think I deserved to talk to him. And I think the fact that I had a conversation with John Lewis is the most important thing I've ever done in my career. And I was talking like that. I was telling you how proud I was of myself. And you just looked at me and you said, "You're off the bench." And it was so profound that you said that I probably didn't, I don't remember what happened, but I'm sure I didn't speak for quite a while.
Yeah.
That about what you meant. I knew exactly what you meant. And no longer did I feel self-conscious about who I was in the past, who I was now, and where I was going.
Yep.
In a way, I almost, and after Series ended, because of things like that, I almost was like, I don't need to keep working. Like, I'm done. I did it. I'm way off the bench. I could retire. I made such an important impact in my life and my career. Of course, I needed to keep making money though. So, and I'm glad that I did, because now I've done something better than anything I did in my career, which is create this community around this show, which I'm so excited to introduce you to them. So I just thought that would be.
I love hearing that story again. And
the feedback and the reward for what you did for me. And that was just one of every session, and there were hundreds probably.
Thank you. And I knew what he meant to you. I know what he meant to me, and I never got to meet him, but I've read his books. I've listened to him speak. I just have such an admiration for the courage it takes to live fully, embody your values. And for you to have a conversation with him, you're in the thick of it. You're in the center of the game. You were the quarterback.
Yeah. I think sometimes people will ask, why do you do what you do? And the activism especially, and speak out in certain places where it's not safe. Learned that last week. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's a lot of different reasons. My brother being the first, teaching me about social justice and bullies and hating bullies and wanting to stand up to them. But really, why do I do it? Because John Lewis told me to my face. Because he's getting in good trouble. Yep. I don't know that he said those words, but like he was saying that to all of us.
Yes.
And he recognized whatever light I had, whatever platform I had. And I was like, I'm going to do what he said to do. That's why I do it. John Lewis.
Exactly.
Good trouble.
Exactly.
Get your head knocked in, maybe.
That's
I might.
Right.
I don't know.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
always
It's scary as hell.
It's scary as hell.
I tell everybody, but I can't think of who, if not us.
Yes.
Exactly. We're the ones we've been waiting for, apparently. Never thought we'd be in this situation, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to racism and sexism, we thought we'd continue to slowly grow, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's what
Totally.
So to be here and to be white is to have to get in good trouble.
We do. We have to really, really take a look at ourselves, because I think that we haven't, as a country, understood what whiteness is.
Right.
We have not. We keep holding on to it. Even those of us who have been social justice advocates and activists, I think it's, oh my God, I think it's really deep. And I think, wasn't it just back in 2016 when was it that Marianne Williamson was even on the ballot?
But she's on the ballot for a minute this time, but she was back in 20. Yeah.
20. And she was the only person talking about reparations.
Yeah.
There was not enough. I mean, you can say pie in the sky that was unrealistic. She should never, but the fact that she put it out publicly and talking, and I don't even know how that needs to happen or what the details.
A bill was introduced in the Congress, I think, but that, it's never going to happen. Never going to happen.
Well, I go to,
it is such a loser of an idea. I mean, like, we couldn't even forgive college loans for white kids. We're going to give reparations to black families. I mean, I just don't see that happen in this country. I love everything about it, and we've seen it in smaller scales. My friend Kimberly Richardson, was an advocate and made it happen in Illinois, in Peoria, and I think they've done it, in California in certain places, or it's been proposed and future. I mean, I just don't see it happen. I didn't mean to shut it down. I would love to.
I don't even know if that's the answer. I'm just saying we have not come to terms with who we are and the foundation of this country. That's what I'm talking about. Like,
we're still naming. We're still honoring Confederate soldiers, much less name,
Yeah. And we're still pretending, or we're banning books and not letting us talk about history. Right. These are people who hate our country. It's like, can we just look at it honestly? I've been to Germany, and there's much more talked about what happened in Germany.
They're very open about confessing the sins of their past. They put signs up that are like, sorry, we did a lot of bad things here.
They teach it in school. They're like, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again?
They don't have statues of Hitler in Germany the way we do. We have statues of our Hitlers.
I know.
Of our terrorists. They're all terrorists. So the statues of them, naming schools and military bases after them.
We're here because of that ugly racial sexist, the sexism, the misogyny, everything. Oh my God. And I know that we have to do a reckoning. I think the labor has been on people of color, and we as white people have to take responsibility.
It was always so important to me that you had these views, and they would come up from time to time when I would ask you how to be and who I should be and to this group or that. I mean, we would talk about it in therapy. What else influenced you in terms of, you mentioned Dermy, but in terms of John Lewis and others you didn't meet, in terms of philosophers and others, whether it be Buddhism or any other ideology? What has influenced you, probably, I'm guessing, consistently throughout your life, personally and in your work? Because I've got all these books, and you would always suggest books to me. I've got books and books from you, but I'm always suggesting books to people. Specifically for me, the main person that really resonates with me is Pema Chodron. Like her work, you When Things Fall Apart.
We looked at that together. You could YouTube
I
her.
like Taking the Leap, which is a little book, and it just resonated with me. And I was I was walking with Ken Zatz, who nobody else knows, but I hike with him every Wednesday in the woods. And he suggested, I was reading one of her books, and you had, of course, suggested When Things Fell Apart, but he suggested it. And I go, what if things don't fall apart? Maybe that book's not appropriate. And he stopped. He goes, Pete, things always fall apart. No matter who you are, no matter what, things fall apart.
And the other book of hers that I love is Things That Scare Us, or something about being scared. And you can there was a great talk of hers called Don't Bite the Hook.
Oh, I'll grab the audio for this episode.
It's really good.
Remember.
Yeah, Don't Bite the Hook.
So that's one person. I can mention others, but who do you?
I love Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh has just, and his books are so simple.
His accent is too thick to play on the show. I tried to play a clip of his, and I was like, I don't think it's better when you have the subtitles. And I was like, I wonder if people listen, if they can understand what you say. I'll give it a shot, and people will let me know, because go ahead. Sorry. Thich Nhat Hanh.
Well, I actually did a whole series. I just read one of his books on how to sit on my podcast, and it took me like four episodes, and I just would read it out loud because it was so profound to me.
Sit that? Is that why you sit like that?
How to sit consciously, how to sit mindfully, how to sit. But he has a book, little tiny books, how to relax.
Yeah, I've got one next to my bed. I think it's something about love, though. Is that right? Maybe not.
Could be. But mindfulness, he just has so many books about bringing mindfulness to everyday life and finding the miracles in everyday life. Pema Chodron definitely was a big influence on me. Thich Nhat Hanh, certainly The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
You like Eckhart Tolle?
I like.
Isn't he just a really good communicator, and he's got that funny accent, but he's really just repackaging Buddhism, and many others are, for a modern age. And I think that's appropriate. Repackaging.
Totally. I love Tara Brach. I've taken courses.
I played her on the show the other day. Yeah.
I took a course with her years ago. I took a course with Gabor Mate, who I just love. So these are all people that are just, again, repackaging what you're saying. The other book I remember giving you, and it was back when I was doing a lot of parenting skills, I gave you Haim Gnat.
Between Parent and Child.
Exactly.
That was a game changer.
Good job.
Oh, I've plugged it a million times.
Okay. Yeah. Haim Gnat, to me, back when I was a parenting specialist and running parenting workshops in Brooklyn and Queens, I was paid to read every book there was on parenting. I was reading How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, How to Listen So Kids Will Talk. Faber and Majlish were the authors. And then there was parent effectiveness training and teacher effectiveness training. I'm dating myself. These go way back. Thomas Gordon. Those guys all took Haim Gnat's foundation and repackaged it. One into a workshop, one into a skill building thing.
I'm fine with that.
And that's great. Whatever way you can get it.
Now, but I just wondered if that's what it was if that's what he was doing. I was like, this guy's just he wasn't as earth shattering to me. And he speaks to some people because the beginning of his enlightenment was a deep depression where he was suicidal. Right.
And that introduction I know speaks to some of my clients beautifully. I love having a lot. Poetry. Mary Oliver is a poet that I will pull out. Somebody will be talking about something in my office and I'll put out a specific poem that Mary Oliver, and it's just like, John O'Donohue I love. The Irish poet I love. I don't know. There's a lot.
Do you have a usefulness yourself for organized religion? And what's your relationship been with that? And when you have, that's the question.
I was raised Catholic. My mom was raised Quaker, so even though she converted to Catholicism before she met my dad, she had more Quaker in her than Catholicism. She was one of these spiritual seekers. I do not feel like my mom ever felt at home with organized religion, but she was seeking. My dad is still a staunch Catholic. I should say staunch. I think so. Yeah. It's really important to him. And has
he seen Spotlight? That's my joke when people say they're very Catholic.
Well, now I'm one of 9 children. That's good Catholic family. Not one of us are practicing Catholics.
Oh, wow.
And so we've all questioned authority. I remember having a bumper sticker on my first car saying question authority.
Wow.
And I just felt like we were really lucky to have a lot of radical priest friends of our family, ex-nuns and ex-priests that were part of our growing up. And I'm still in touch with some of them today.
Where was this? Where did you go?
I grew up in Mamaroneck.
In Westchester County, New York.
Yeah.
Just north of New York City.
North of New York City.
Oh, interesting.
But this one phenomenal Catholic priest friend of our families was Bob Fox. He was not related to Matthew Fox, but I got to meet Matthew Fox when I was a teenager. Matthew Fox did liberation theology. And
he was on Party of Five and Lost. The actor Matthew Fox.
No. Anyway, so I think even as a kid, I was surrounded by critical thinking, religious people.
Got it.
And the nuns that I know were movers and shakers. Talk about social activism and social justice and political activism. These were really hip nuns that I knew, and many of them ended up quitting and not staying with it. So I felt like I was seeking myself. I got connected with the Episcopal Church for a while, but I was always a questioner. I was always like, I don't buy the institution. Can I be here and still question? Can I be here? But I haven't been part of an...
No, you can't. You're a woman. So that's what... Let me just throw that out just because I guess I didn't realize that about your background. And I have no space or daylight for the institution of the Catholic Church based... Put aside the pedophilia scandal. You can't put it aside, but put it aside for the sake of the fact that I can't bring my daughter into that institution because she can't rise to the leadership role. And that's not true of a lot of other Christian.
Well, the Episcopal Church is where I got involved because, oh my God, They are not homophobic. They ordain women. Priests can marry. There's a lot of good social justice stuff. Like the Episcopal Church to me was familiar.
If you got to be a Catholic, be an Episcopalian.
But then it would depend on which church you went to.
Oh, really?
You'd have these very hip rectors and pastors, and you'd have ones that were very. So I just thought, forget it. I don't buy it, and I don't care if I can question it or can't question it. I actually I'd rather walk up Hook Mountain and sit and meditate, and that's my spiritual practice.
You do that? You go up to the mountain and
every morning. Every morning. Yeah.
You climb Hook Mountain every morning?
Yeah. I walk a minimum 5 to 6 miles every day, and a half an hour of that is meditating at the top of Hook Mountain.
Like every morning? What if it's terrible weather?
I bundle up. I go with crampons on my shoes. I walk in the ice and the snow.
All the way up to the top?
Yeah, every morning.
Do you ever take people? That's a isolated thing that you would do.
I really need it for myself. I do so much with other people that I really need.
What happens up there?
I get grounded. I feel more connected to whatever the divine is. I am humbled. I feel connected to the Lenni Lenape people, the native people of our land. I feel grounded and centered, and I feel at one with creation.
That's no small climb. It's not like you go for a walk or a run every morning. That's a good.
It's not a big climb. I've been doing this for years.
Okay.
I've been doing this for years. I have to say, Paul, my husband, will often go, "Oh, it's only 400 or 500 feet up or something." And I walked by the river the other day because I did the big loop, all 3 summits, and then around. I can get like a good 8-9 mile walk when I do the whole summit, and it's 730 feet, so it's a little bit bigger than 400 or 500 feet.
Do you have any physical? How old are you?
67.
Do you have any? I've always seen you as a very physically strong. You're a muscular woman, you can do.
I had been a dancer. I had been I was a modern dancer.
Do you have any at 67? Any issues, especially with your lower body, doing that kind of thing?
No.
Repeatedly, you don't have impingements, knees, hips.
No, I'm so happy, and I have 20/20 vision. I've never worn glasses.
Nobody needed to hear that. I mean, that has nothing to do with your training. Listen, you can't achieve that. You don't get any credit for your vision.
I do. I feel so happy that I can get up on the top of the mountain. I'm up with the bird.
That your vision. So your vision has never degraded. Why is that? I thought everybody's vision.
I was on the top of Hook Mountain the other day with the bird watchers. A lot of the volunteer bird watchers that have gotten to know me. Pete, I have a nickname from the bird watchers that I didn't know until just recently. They call me the meditation lady. They will literally journal. The bird watchers count the migration of the hawks and the eagles and blah blah blah. And I've seen them. They're only there in the spring when the migration starts or when the migration ends at this time of year. Anyway, a friend of mine who lives in Ossining, her son is a bird watcher, and I was hanging out with her one day, and this was last year, and I'm talking to Kyle Bardwell, who I've known since he was in utero, and he says to me, "You walk up Hook Mountain every day?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Do you meditate at the top of Hook Mountain?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You're the meditation lady." I go, "What are you talking about?" He pulls out, there's journaling that the bird watchers keep, and they share of how many they saw, and the meditation lady was here today. Oh, the meditation lady was here before I set up today.
Lady.
I'm like, I'm so excited. I'm the meditation lady.
You see them. It's not like you're hiding. So you sit and meditate.
On a rock.
I feel self-conscious meditating and people seeing me sometimes, but now I don't.
You'll come with me.
I don't need. I mean, now I don't because it's like you do it. I'll do anything that you've tried. You tell me, you give me permission. But you're the meditation lady. You're the
Isn't
lady.
That so cute?
It is cute, and it's weird to imagine that you've got a nickname that you didn't know. But it's also it's so great that it's not the feeds the deer bread lady like a neighbor of mine. What could be better? There's an idea of the old man at the top of the mountain that is all wise, but it's actually you.
It's me.
It's you.
There.
You're climbing that mountain and meditating. And no matter the weather, how long do you sit?
Anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes.
in the freezing weather.
Yeah. It's
Do you know a lot of people who do this?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
I didn't think so.
I often will try and do it. I don't always get up there for sunrise, but I'm often, once in a while during the year, I will go up early enough and be up there for the sunrise. And I'll be up there and I'll be the only person there. And every once in a while, I don't have time in the morning. So I'll go in the afternoon. Like when I bumped into you, I had just done like 6 miles, 7 miles. And it's like in the afternoon, like people are around. Who are all these people? I'm not used to seeing people. I love going up there alone.
Just one more question on the fact that you're so physically healthy. Obviously, we've established your mental health, and that's what you do for a living. But I found out about you through yoga because Val.
Right.
So your upper body's always been like you've always had muscular arms and like so. Just again, I'm sorry, but like I don't know how that lands with you, but I don't really care. The point is, I'm trying to help by saying what is it that you do physically at 67? You're in such great shape. And we've got the hike. That's like going to obviously help your lower body.
I do yoga.
Is it yoga that does your upper body and then your whole overall flexibility? And so you don't have like a back issue. I mean, what do you attribute it all to is what I'm getting to. Your strength, your physical strength, flexibility, et cetera.
One of the prayers that I say at the top of Hook Mountain after I've meditated, I stand up and I do 3 sun salutations. And the first one is, or half sun salutations. And I say, thank you for my body, for its strength, its flexibility, its balance, its energy, its vitality, its health.
You don't even include a thank you for your vision. That's how good it is, folks. I was waiting for it. Thank you for my perfect vision at 67.
And then I will say, thank you for the ways my body holds me, carries me, stretches me, expands me. May I care for my body wisely with exercise, nutrition, sleep, and being able to communicate with my body and listen to what it needs me to know, how my body helps me to bring what's unconscious to consciousness. That's part of, and then I do a sun salutation for my mind and for my soul. So that's kind of my little thing. So I do think exercise, nutrition, and sleep are the ways that I care for my body wisely. I have to say, Pete, my mom, all right, so she gave birth to 9 children. My mom did not take good care of her body. My mom actually ate horribly. I think drank way too much, smoked. She was a chain smoker for a long time. She didn't exercise much, and I watched her, and often I will thank her for giving me an example of what I don't want.
Right.
I was like, thanks, Mom. I know that you kind of took one for the team, and you kind of like did all the things that actually were really destructive to your body. What would it be like if I could be constructive with my body?
I actually have of course, I thought about, as you're saying that, I was like, what about me? I have the opposite of that. I live in the shadow of a competitive cyclist. Like, I don't think I'll ever be in as good a shape as my dad, but that's not a terrible thing either because, genetically, I think I'm his twin. Do your siblings have also like really?
Yeah, my siblings are healthy. I think
What is the least healthy thing that you do? Or eat? Or do you drink at all? At all?
Because my mom was an alcoholic and I had family members who were alcoholics, relatives, I spent most of my 20s and 30s as a teetotaler. I did the opposite. I watched it. It was like, oh my God, I don't want that to be me. And I avoided it.
That's why I didn't drink when I was in high school because of my brother. And until I was like 22 did I have my first drink. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I definitely was just like, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. And that was probably more fear-based. It was really freeing by the time I was in my 40s to have friends who drank responsibly and were not alcoholics and they could enjoy a glass of wine. And so that was like, I can do that. Oh my God, I can do it. So I think, I certainly can enjoy a glass of wine, and we've gone to vineyards when we've been to Italy, and all of that is, and to see the artistry of it and the creativity and the dedication of that, that's really beautiful. But I also know that I could take it or leave it. Like it's not that important to me. And if I never had another drink in my life, that would be fine. And it's nice to have a glass of wine once in a while maybe once a month, or I don't know. It's just not that important to me, but it's also lovely to be with friends who can do it responsibly.
What about, do you eat anything badly? Eat chips or fried food or anything like that?
No.
Do you eat processed food at all?
Not really.
You just eat twigs and berries and
locust.
Do you find any joy in eating?
I love eating. Love eating. Paul's an amazing chef. I'm so lucky.
Wow, lucky you.
Paul's like a gourmet chef.
Does he do all the cooking, or do you?
He does some? A lot, but because I'm vegetarian, pescatarian, I think he misses his meat, so he will definitely eat a lot of meat when he goes out to restaurants, but he won't cook it so much at home.
How long have you not eaten meat?
15 years, 20 years.
What's the reason for that?
I didn't like the way it made me feel, and then it was kind of more
physically or mental, like eating dead animals.
Both, the energy of it, and I also just I love animals. I love animals. I can't imagine. What was Mr. Rogers' line? I don't eat anything that had a mother.
You once had, I think about this a lot. Almost every time I drive by your house, which is often, because I drive by in a way that I can see your backyard. Deborah's house is where her practice is. I can say that on the record. Mm-hmm. You had a koi pond, and you told me, you said, Pete, it was devastating. I go, what? You go, an eagle or a hawk came and ate.
An egret, and then a heron.
You had these giant fish in a pond, and these birds they would eat them.
Yes, it was like a free sushi
and that
bar.
Horrified. It really upset you.
Oh my God!
You put a cage over it, and they still got to them. Is that right?
Yes,
am I remembering that?
Yes. But Paul's cage is much better now.
Do you now have the fish? And they're not. You have one.
I just don't want to keep. I don't want to keep.
The loss is too much for you.
The loss is really.
It really bothers you.
It really was
that
hard
those
for me.
koi fish that you keep are being eaten by.
Yeah. And
did you see it happen?
One I did.
So that brings us to trauma.
What a segue.
It's a word that many people have learned recently. When did you learn that word, and how have thoughts and scholarship and changed around what trauma is and what it means and what it does? I mean, I've got such an amateur understanding of it, but I mean, there's a lot of best-selling books now, right? I know. The Body Knows the Score, I think, is probably the most popular one. I don't know. But this word trauma. Besser. I feel like the word, it's like, it doesn't mean anything, because one person's trauma is not another person. So if you were abused as a child once, that's much less a lot of times, physically or sexually or emotionally or verbally. If you, like me, I think about 9/11 traumatizing me to a certain extent, in that it comes out when, in certain ways, but it doesn't like affect me at all. Like it's a little trauma. I feel it. I feel maybe a vibration. I feel a feeling. I feel a thought. I don't want to go up in that building. Just actual tangible thoughts. I don't know if that's trauma, and I don't use the word. I don't think I suffered any trauma. Now, this guy you mentioned, Gabor Mate, says everybody's suffered trauma. But my point is, language matters, and we need to have a kind of a perspective on what it means. And I just hold a real important place for people who have suffered from sexual or physical abuse, and the trauma that creates. And that feels like it's been pretty well studied and so on, how it plays out in your life. So my question is just, what are your thoughts for kind of a layperson's audience on this idea and the way it's now being talked about, and obviously how it's played out throughout your career, whether in your life or in your practice?
Well, I'm probably very similar to you, that I think it gets overused and it gets used haphazardly. And it's the same way that I feel about even depression. You know, people would say, "Oh, I'm so depressed." I'm like, "No, you're not. No, you're really not clinically depressed. You're functioning." And it's like, we would use sad. Somebody was sad and they'd say depressed, or, "Oh my God, that's crazy." That's a word that I have a hard time. Crazy. Like people the word crazy gets used wrong, inappropriately. Like, he's so crazy. And it's like crazy good, crazy bad. I don't know what you mean. It's like it becomes slang.
So many different interpretations of all these words. And when you overuse them, they have no meaning.
Exactly.
And I don't know, I want to establish a language that works for people listening so we can identify, hey, I only recently learned that I was dealing with anxiety. I mean, after I lost my job, I saw you, I'm pretty sure. You may have known or remember that was the main thing I worried about, losing my job, because it meant so much to my family and obviously to my identity. And so when I started shaking physically, and I went to my primary care physician, he sent me to a neurologist, and the neurologist did a bunch of tests, and I was like, so do I have Parkinson's, AIDS, MS, and everything else? He goes, no.
Anxiety.
He goes, you lost your job.
Hello.
And it's really upsetting.
Exactly.
And you don't know what you're going to do.
Exactly.
And I was like, well, you're a fucking doctor, so you don't have to worry about financial security, right? You don't know. And then they escorted me out with security. Yeah, no, I mean, he was just like, yeah, you're fine. You're dealing with
I also
normal.
think,
and I was like, oh, that's what anxiety is. And so, but again, even then, my anxiety is not yours or theirs or anybody else's. Yeah. So it just feels like we overuse these words. And I mean, my eyes roll back in the back of my head. So you must.
Oh my God, it really is. And even trauma, it's like, you're talking trauma? Like, anyway, I do think that trauma gets overused, and yet maybe it's like the pendulum swinging, where we need to be able to, we've ignored it or minimized it or dismissed it for so long. Now that we're going to the other extreme and everybody's been traumatized and we have to be educated on it. And maybe we're going to find some sweet spot where we understand what it truly means. And I think there are a lot of people who have traumas that don't even know that they've been traumatized, and when the body keeps the score, it gets locked in the body and you can release it. I think the really cool thing about learning different trauma release techniques and modalities for me as a therapist is it doesn't have to be your identity. You don't have to. There's something that I remember hearing, maybe it was Carolyn Meese years ago in Anatomy of the Spirit, who talked about woundology, as if people identified with their wounds. Like, somebody coming up to her at a conference and before she even introduced herself or told her name said, I'm a rape victim. I'm a blah, blah, blah. I've been traumatized. And it's like, hello, nice to meet you. What's your name? Like there's right. There's something about
wearing the trauma, and
wearing it as a badge or identifying, so identified with it that you don't know who you truly are beyond it. So I'm very careful about wanting to honor a trauma, wanting to honor anxiety, but knowing that's not all of who you are or who you can be.
Right, because if the goal is to get better or not deal with that, then you have to start with realizing it's not permanent. You have to, but it becomes that way if you wear it as a suit every day.
Yes, exactly.
That was some damn good reflective listening of me.
Listen to you. Listen to you listening to me. Knowing you, knowing me.
I feel like I could spend hours on each one of these things that we're saying, but I want to, one of the solution to everything for me in my life is mindfulness. Mm-hmm. And meditation is the tool that allows me to practice mindfulness effectively throughout my day, because meditation helps me recognize the thoughts I'm thinking throughout my day. So when I'm spiraling, panicking, or worried, trying to use all the words, about a thing that is happening, and more importantly, isn't happening, I try to come back to the moment that I'm in, and then I go through a battery of maybe sayings in my head mm-hmm. to get out mm-hmm. of the paralysis that is that concern. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be there long. So sometimes I'll be there 2 minutes. Sometimes I'll be there 5 minutes, probably longer. Mm-hmm. I was there for the whole day the other day when I was getting all these threats and so on. Mm-hmm. I was really panicky and spiraling. And I've said this a bunch of times since the election. Every 2 in your life, every 2 problem is now a 9 mm-hmm. because how the election affects everything. So I've really not done a great job last week, but it saves me every time. Mm-hmm. It's always the thing for me. Meditation, which allows me to practice mindfulness.
Yep.
I feel like I've been proselytizing about this in this microphone and anywhere I go, and especially with men, because they're less likely to be open to it. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. But talk to me about your feelings on it. You taught it to me in many ways, and how you teach it either differently or similarly to your clients, what your beliefs are on meditation and how it informs the rest of your day's consciousness, mindfulness.
Well, I actually walk up to the top of Hook Mountain because it's a walking meditation. It's a spiritual practice. It's not just a physical exercise. I start out by, I've got a number of prayers that I've memorized. I've got a number of meditations that I say every day. Actually, when I bumped into you recently, and I said, Pete, I want you to know that I hold you in meditation every day. And you said, what, with 10,000 other people?
I said, how long is the list? First tell me how long is the list, so how special do I need to feel? And then you made it very specific, and then I believed it, and then I put my hand on my heart because I was like, I'm going to cry.
Yeah, because you are in the category.
Yeah.
I have different categories of people that I pray for, and you're in the category of people who work for equity, justice, accountability, abolition, and revolutionary love. You're my social justice category. And you're doing it sometimes through humor, sometimes through community, sometimes through news and podcasts and going on, all those
Board
television
of Education
shows.
meetings
Yes,
is where
exactly.
it's most been.
But you, ever since, even when I first saw you do your stand-up routine in New York City.
I wonder when that was.
It was when I was running the Art of Thinking group that Val was in, and we all came down to see you. And then I brought my son Will, and Paul and I came to see you. Big fans. And then you did Pete on the Street.
On CNN, every night. Yeah.
Anyway, the first time I saw you do your thing, I knew that you had the gift of comedy and relatability, but I also knew you cared about social justice. And I think I think for me to be a therapist but still care about social justice comes from this foundation of a daily spiritual practice. And I don't want it to be a rigid one, even though I have these prayers and meditations memorized. If I can't do it, I can't do it. And it's not like this shame or anything, but I know how good I feel. And I know how more present I can be to myself and to others when I have replenished and nourished myself with spiritual practices. So it's, and I think that's probably a big reason why I care about my body, mind, and spirit. I'm connected to something bigger than this physical realm. And I just know that, we're meant for these times. And so I want to be a spiritual warrior, if you will. I want to be, a sacred activist. I don't know how to say it, but I need
Well, you are and have been all those things. I mean, I know that you're saying it as if it's an ambition, but you actually are those things and have been for a long time. You made a huge impact throughout your life.
Thank you. I have to say, you were talking about giving me feedback and you getting an applause before you get on stage. I went to my sister-in-law's retirement party. She was in PR, and
Puerto Rico.
Public relations. And I went to her retirement party back in the summer. And on the train ride home, I was like, I don't think therapists get to have a retirement party. It would be totally inappropriate.
Oh, all of your clients.
Can you imagine the HIPAA laws I'd be breaking to bring all my clients together?
That is hilarious.
Could we do a routine on this? I'm listening to all the people that she's worked with over the last 30 years saying what she's meant to them. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do the silent thing. Like I get to hear.
Are you going to retire?
Yeah.
That's the plan?
Yeah. I've already gone down to 2 days a week.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think the pandemic wore me out, got me close to burnout.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I was working way too much.
You let me know. I'll arrange the retirement party. I got some ideas.
But I don't need a retirement party. But it was just like, oh yeah, therapists don't get retirement parties.
Well, I mean, but though you realize the impact that you've made through
and I trust that.
However many years did you say 37 years that you've been doing this?
Yeah. I do trust that. And I do trust that the relationships I have with, and one of the nice things about cutting my practice down to 2 days a week is I really got to the place where it's okay to not be seeing people who aren't doing the work. It's really okay.
So you could pick and choose the people that you want to talk to, and you're like, I think that's perfectly adequate and moral. And it's also, at this point, it's like,
at 67, I'm allowed to say, I don't want to be working with somebody who drains me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be working with somebody who is actually not doing the work and not doing the heavy lifting. Like I love being in partnership with somebody who takes responsibility for themselves and wants to make their lives better.
I feel like you didn't answer we got off on just
meditation.
Well, on mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Do you want to say anything about, or can you?
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Because that's another word people hear, and I constantly try to define it as it plays out in my actual life every day.
Yeah.
Because that's the way I learn. That's why I like Dan Harris so much. He talks to me the way I.
Yep.
He's like me. He's a similar type guy.
Yeah.
So how do you talk
mindfulness is bringing bringing awareness, consciousness to everything I'm doing, and to do it like with joy. I love the idea that mindfulness makes me feel more present to what's right in front of me, as opposed to I need to escape it or avoid it or numb it or deny it. It's like I want to be present to even what's difficult. Like even with the election this past week, as devastating as it was, Pete, the very first thing I did was sit on my meditation cushion. I didn't have the energy to walk up Hook Mountain that morning. And I gave myself permission to sit on the cushion.
That's what it takes? Not a blizzard?
Blizzards I can do. I can be like the mailman. Snow, sleet, hail, it doesn't matter. But an election and Donald Trump, holy shit, I can't go up to the mountain.
I feel so human now. The fact that, because we're all, we've heard so much this week about, having compassion, taking some time off, licking your wounds. But
I went right. Two things that happened for me that allowed me, and again, mindfulness. I sat on my cushion and I started to do my regular metta meditation, my compassion meditation, my earth blessing, all of the categories of people I pray for, think about, and, that attitude of gratitude. And then I just started to think, okay, I'm still here. The sun came out. It just is like, okay, I don't have to let my mind take me to catastrophizing and turning this into, and there's going to be a lot of darkness. And maybe I'm here at this plane of existence right now with you and other people who are feeling a lot of pain and anguish, because we are bright lights and we're trying to figure out how to shine our lights collectively.
But I'm tired.
I am too.
And I know there's people that are a lot more tired than I am. I'm tired from the first time. I don't want to do this again.
I know.
I don't know if I can do it again. I think I'm going to go into finance and real estate.
Yeah, that's so you.
No, I'm here for it. I am. And I agree with you on that. But I only said that because I know a lot of people are saying that and feeling that, especially people who are in more danger. Like if I'm tired.
Oh, I can't imagine. I can't imagine black women right now.
Yeah, no,
I've
always
carried this load for so long for all of us. Yeah. I can't imagine.
That's why I'm talking to them every day.
Yeah, me too.
And you do too. And I'm trying to just listen.
Yeah, but
the answer that I've heard from a lot of black women, almost all of them.
What?
That I've talked to directly. I've seen other black women talking, but a lot of them are saying this too. Like thinking of Jessica Williams on The Daily Show.
Yeah.
She's like, lick your wounds and then get up and do the work, because this is what they want. They want us to give up. They want us to be distracted.
Exactly.
What I'm hearing from a lot of black women is that they're going to find joy. They're turning away from the news. They're watching Netflix. They're doing things that make them feel good right now.
Yep.
And I was making assumptions that they were scared and catastrophizing.
Oh, they're so used to this.
Right. And they're like, no, I'm going to find joy and light right now.
Yeah. Yeah. They're so used to. And the other thing I felt, first I had to ground myself. And then I am in a circle. I created a circle, maybe 10 years ago with 3 other women. We call ourselves the Winged Women. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, one of them texted me about an hour into my meditation. And I was like, oh my God, she just put words to exactly what I was feeling. And the other one said some other words. And then we said, should we get on a Zoom before we start our day and have to face other people? Yes, let's get on a Zoom.
This was when?
On Wednesday morning.
The day after the election?
Yes.
Go ahead, and you're going to tell us what they said?
So they said beautiful, beautiful things. I don't have it memorized, but it was basically, we have to hold each other in love. We have to hold on to love. We cannot let this darkness cover up what we know to be true in ourselves and in other human beings.
What would that look like if it did for you, for wing people who are enlightened? Like for you, if that happened, what would it look like? It would mean you are what? Catastrophizing and depressed and giving up and not doing it. I mean,
despair. Yeah, absolute give up, despair. I don't know. So we got on a Zoom with each other and we let each other cry. Yeah. We held each other. Yeah. There was just like, oh my God, I can face my 8 clients today because I just got replenished with this community. And I think if everybody I knew had a circle of 3 or 4 people, it doesn't even have to be that big. And I have 3 or 4 of those circles of trusted people that I can be absolutely raw and vulnerable with. And
Wonderful.
I think.
Hard to find that though.
Yeah, but you got to cultivate it.
Hard to cultivate it.
Bullshit.
Oh.
Sorry.
Well, we've created a community here, but it's all,
you have.
And then there's all these sub people that are.
So was that hard to find? You created it.
I think what I meant by that was I think people are anxious socially. They're introverted and they think you won't like me. I'm not going to fit in your group. I guess I was trying to speak for them.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't very compassionate. I just said bullshit. Okay.
It was a good moment. I liked it. No, I mean, it's also something you would do in therapy too, which I like. Because I always needed a therapist who would call that on me and friends who would call that on me. You know, I mean, it's like.
Because I think that's a constant.
I had a friend recently. I'm like, I don't want to do that. My friend Ophira, listeners know, comedian. I go, I don't want to do that. And she goes, yeah, I know, but you have to. I'll see you tomorrow. I was like, what? No one talks to me that way. It's like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. You got to do it.
That's part of the mindset. Yeah. I can't, or it's hard, or it's difficult. It's like, do it anyway.
Yeah.
Do it anyway. So I know that I feel so much less traumatized than I thought I would a week after this election because I'm cultivating a lot of love and I'm connecting with people.
Yeah, same. I'm feeling much less traumatized. To be fair, I didn't even allow for. Zat said to me, I go, how are you looking at this? And he goes, well, I'm preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. And I was like, oh, I'm not preparing for the worst. I did no prep for the worst. None. And so I wasn't ready and I came undone a lot of times. You can watch it on television. And then now I'm feeling as you just described. Like I'm surprised by that feeling, but I also feel for me personally, like great purpose, specifically in this community and trying to.
And that's what mindfulness does. I'll go right back to your question. What? Exactly what you just described and what I just described. When you're mindful, you can be in the present moment. And I think so much of what the opposite of mindfulness is living in the past, which is a lot of regret, and living in the future, which is a lot of anxiety and worry and fear.
Yeah.
And so when you're in the present moment, you catch yourself being present to what is. I can be with the difficulty. I can be with the the discomfort. I can be with the being misunderstood by somebody. I'm going to be with what is in the present moment. That's mindfulness to me, as opposed to, what if this happens? Well, let's see. We're going to weather this. We're going to get through this and we're going to figure it out. And I have to say, in the midst of this possible, very, very, very potentially dark, chaotic, it almost feels like our country is hitting bottom. We talk about it from a 12-step perspective.
Yeah.
It's very rare for somebody who has an addiction to actually get out of the addiction, quit the addiction, live a more fruitful life, a more nourishing life without having hit bottom. And you know, as well as I do, that everybody's bottoming out is different. I think we as a country are bottoming out. I think we are hitting bottom, and that's exactly what I think is needed for growth and transformation to happen.
I wonder what it looks like, or what it will look like. I feel like COVID was in some ways that, but well, we'll see, and we'll talk about it when we do. I have one last question for you, which is about men and boys, and what you think the issue is and what you've seen. Of course, you have 2 kids, and your son is what? How old now?
34.
But it's weird that Will became a Proud Boy. But no, he's a great guy.
Can I tell you, he lives in Bali? I haven't even told you that.
What?
He moved to Indonesia.
What?
He's been there almost a year.
Of course he did. Oh, yeah. Wow. What's he doing?
We'll talk about it another time.
Okay, fine. But the issue is like, I guess you can answer this question however you want, the subject. But speaking for myself, and I've found this once I'm vulnerable and honest in a microphone, much less with another friend of mine about my struggles, they obviously feel safe to open up. Men don't do that. I try to role model that and always have. I think it's a sign of strength. I mean, if people define strength simply by, braving your demons and being vulnerable, being willing to be judged and embarrassed, it's really hard. So what I've realized and what I've found a lot of is that men of a certain age and socioeconomic status, men like me who grew up with a lot of privilege, when I finally started having real dramatic adversity, I didn't have the resilience required. I'm a snowflake on a hot grill. I come undone. I panic. I melt. And a lot of men like me get a lot worse off than I did. They become addicts, alcohol usually, but drugs or anything else, sex, you name it. And they a lot of times kill themselves. And I wonder how to talk to men and boys in a way that makes them feel seen, as we started here, because I agree with a lot of the experts on this issue. I've focused on women and girls when it comes to gender my entire career, and obviously as a father of 2 girls. And I haven't thought nearly as much about men and boys other than me, myself.
I think they're really
and my friends.
Really lonely.
Men.
I think men and boys are really, really lonely. When I think about the resources that I had on the day after election, I got thinking about how many men are turning to other women to be in a small group of solidarity and vulnerability. And I just thought, that must be really lonely. Some of the men in my practice, I think, are isolated and lonely.
Don't you think, though, don't you think it's because men don't do that? We do, of course we do. But we don't generally sit down and have a circle or, get on a text chat. We do things. When we're talking and connecting, by the way, there's research on this that you probably know more than I do about. We do best when we're not looking at each other. So sitting shoulder to shoulder at a bar.
Or in a car.
Or
driving a car.
Or golfing.
Yep.
When I don't have to see your reaction. I use this app where I make videos and I talk and then my friends talk back to me. The Marco Polo app. I love plugging it, but they should do an ad for men and we don't listen as well. So you're forced to listen using that app. So I feel like we just don't, for all these different reasons, cultural reasons, and we don't connect that way.
Yeah.
But
you are connecting. And there is, so it does.
I mean, I do a great job of it, but better than any man I know. I have more male friends, and I take pride and joy in some entertainment in making other men uncomfortable. Like all my high school buddies, it's the best.
Yeah.
So I love it, but I don't think most men try or think that way. And I think they're terrified and helpless and lonely and depressed, and it leads to all kinds of bad things, outcomes.
Yeah, it does. It leads to, again, being a victim and then needing to find somebody to hate or feel better than. It's,
right. That's the stuff.
Yeah, that's the stuff.
The victim, my loneliness, my sadness, my inability to have a girlfriend, much less have sex, is somebody else's, or something else's fault. And it might very well be.
Right.
But
it might be.
I'm not sure that gets you anywhere. And too often the wrong things are blamed, and we prey upon people's depression. The reason you feel that way is because of this entity or that group of people.
You know, in Buddhism, they say that it's really important it's a shift in mindset to see that the world is coming not at me and to me, but from me. So like instead of saying this situation, you know, she wouldn't have sex with me, or she broke up with me, or it's like it's coming at me, like I'm being attacked or I'm the victim of, as opposed to it's coming from me. What's my mindset? How do I co-create my world? How do I co-create? That's part of mindfulness. That's part of meditation, but that's part of shifting the mindset so that you see yourself as a co-creator of your own reality as opposed to the victim of it.
I think I probably wasn't honest with you, or maybe I didn't realize it because I don't remember it coming up, and maybe it did. But I know it came up after I lost my job and all these other circumstances that I've dealt with over the past few years, which was I felt very bad for myself, and I spent a lot of time in self-pity. And I read in Pema Chodron's one of her books about how that's bad. And Deb, I don't know, maybe you told me it was bad, but I didn't know it was so bad to feel, and I guess I never really thought about it, but I spent a lot of time feeling bad for myself. And then I heard this Stephen Fry quote, which I play all the time, he just talked, in my opinion, perfectly for 2 minutes about how it's a terrible thing. Is self-pity bad? Is it a bad place to be, to feel bad for yourself in general? Thoughts on self-pity? So even your language, we talked about how important language is. Yeah, you're always correcting me on language, especially on absolutes. That's the one I remember most. Oh, good. Don't take things personally. Yeah. Don't make assumptions. Yes. And don't use absolutes. Oh, good job. You did remember. In your handwriting on a note. Because absolutes aren't true. But when you say absolutes never always, they're not true. That's right. They're not true. That's right. Glossed over it. Yeah. Bad. Is it bad? There's the voice of judgment on a microphone. Is it bad? Self-pity. That's the voice of judgment. So what would the voice of compassion sound like asking that question? Is self-pity an unhealthy emotion to be feeling about yourself? So make a statement instead of a question. I don't think self-pity is helpful. Oh. That's the converse of is it bad? I don't think it's good. Yeah. Or how about, I'm not sure how helpful that was for me, and yet I found myself in it. So here's the compassion. That's me every day. Yeah. Like, I don't think that probably wasn't the best way to handle that. Yeah. That wasn't so healthy, but something about my body, my human experience needed to experience that pity for a while. I wonder what that was all about. So then there's curiosity when there's compassion. But if it's just like, is it right? Is it wrong? That's an absolute. Is it good? Is it bad? That's the judgment. That doesn't help me grow. For me to answer, yes, it's bad, or no, it's good. It's like, does that help growth? When I'm there for any period of time, I can't do what I'm here for. Curious. So let me just notice. I can't help you if I'm feeling bad about myself. Yeah, I'm stuck in this pity, and it's making it really hard for me to be motivated to get out of it. How does that serve me? I don't think it serves me so well. How long do I want to stay here? So I would just be curious, let curiosity take over the judgment. And the curiosity might lead to a little more compassion. Yes, it does every time, yeah. The other thing I just wanted to say, when you said you were talking to Black women after the election and getting some good insights from them, and they were talking about choosing joy, choosing, self-care, finding some lightness, because this is what we've been told, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. This country, this promise of democracy, this potential of whatever we're trying to create here in this country. Joy to me is so beautiful. And I know that that's what Kamala was kind of like campaigning on. There was joy. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes, and I say it every day as part of my walking meditation,
is Hafiz. Do you know the work of Hafiz? He's another, Rumi, right? You've heard of Rumi?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So Hafiz is in the same, another mystic, a Persian mystic. Hafiz, it's, how do I say it? Let me do it from memory. Sometimes I forget that I was created for joy. My mind is too busy. My heart is too heavy for me to remember that I was called to dance this sacred dance of life. I was created to smile, to love, to be lifted up, and to lift others up. O sacred one, untangle my feet from all that ensnares. Free my soul, that we might dance, and our dancing might be contagious.
Ooh, that's good. That is really good. I'm going to have to listen to that and read it, write it down, look at it.
I'll send it to you. I love that one.
Yeah. Have you ever read the Don't Quit poem?
No.
It's on my fridge.
Oh, yes. You recited to me.
I'm just thinking of the cheesiest thing that motivates me. That I like to see things like you just read. I like to see them and read them over and over and over and over, and they hit different ways. But that was wonderful. Good stuff.
Good joy.
All right. What else? Was there anything else that? Okay, I'm going to leave it there because that's a really good moment to end on. I was going to actually ask you to do one of your quotes. I was going to ask you, but you did it without me asking you, so I'm going to leave it there.
Oh, good. We were created for joy. Imagine that, Pete. No, literally, imagine that we trusted and believed that we were created for joy.
I thought we were created for suffering. Isn't that some kind of a philosophy? Isn't that what the Buddha said? No, we're supposed to escape suffering.
We acknowledge that it's there.
Yeah.
But we're not created for it. We're created to transcend it. We're created to find the joy despite it. There was another quote that was going around. I think it was like something about the greatest challenge to being alive is to witness injustice.
Yes.
And not let it.
I read that on the show this week.
Did you? And not let it take away our light, and not let it something our light.
Do you know who wrote it? Because I couldn't.
I was finding
a lot of these things I'm reading this week. I couldn't find attribution to. It's kind of weird, but I don't really care necessarily. I guess it matters if it's like, Viktor Frankl, someone that was in a concentration camp or something.
We talked about that. Oh, I so remember so many of those quotes that we would use. But anyway, that's not as important as it's like we're here to witness injustice and not let it take our light away.
Right.
Not let it consume our light, I think is the word. But anyway, I really strongly believe that if I could...
Here it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
This, my dear, is the greatest challenge of being alive. To witness the injustice of this world and not allow it to consume our light. What does that mean in reality, in your life?
Is know that suffering is there, know that pain and injustice is there, and part of the miracle of being alive is to witness it, but not be consumed by it. To literally live into namaste. I end my podcast with namaste from Mama A, but it's like the light in me honors and celebrates the light in you.
Yeah.
Your joy, your social justice, it's like I honor that. So let's not let that be, let our light be consumed by the darkness.
Love it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. How about that for a therapy session? There she goes. Deborah Adamy. Go listen to her podcast and let her know. You can reach out to her and let her know that you heard her here in our conversation. I think she's going to be back here. I think she'll probably stop by one of our hangouts and talk further. I don't think she's taking on new clients. She's semi-retired. She does a few days a week of client sessions, and I think that's it. But I'm sure that you'll get to connect with her at some point because she'll be at our hangouts or some event maybe that we do. Enlighten.nyc to learn more about Deborah. And I'd really love your feedback on her. Her email is deb@enlighten.nyc. It would be so great if you reached out to her, deb@enlighten.nyc. That's what I've got for you for today. I may be back with something over the weekend, and I would love to know who you want to hear me talk to. Maybe it's you. reach out. standupwithpete@gmail.com. Standupwithpete@gmail.com. Standupwithpete.com. Join the Discord platform. There's a chat going on all the time. It's 24/7, and I hope to see you at our Hangouts on Monday and Thursday at 8 p.m. If you want to relive this past week's Hangouts, they do live online for about a week, and then I take them down. At least that's the policy right now. So you can check that out in the link that you get with today's podcast, or the day after the Hangout. I'm including the link that you can go watch. A lot of people actually like to go watch the Hangout after it's over. If you missed it, it still adds to the feeling of community, even if it's not live, apparently. All right. That's it. That's all. I'm going to stop talking. I want to thank John Carroll, who I'm hopefully going to be taping an interview with next week. John writes and performs all of the music here, and every day I say he won an Emmy, but he didn't. He won a Grammy, actually. Won 2. He is one of the founding members of the Starland vocal band, which apparently I said Starlight. I'm the worst. The worst. I don't know. I feel horrible. I don't know why I did that. But anyway, he is one of the coolest guys I know, one of the smartest, most thoughtful, generous, interesting, hilarious, wonderful guys. John Carroll. .org. Go buy his music, pay for it there, and that's all I've got for you right now. Have a great weekend. Stay close. Stay grounded. Be mindful, and all the things that Deborah just said. All right. Bye.
They knew that change was going to come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We got to let him know it's his time to go and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand.